The 2026 NFL Combine just wrapped up on Sunday, and let me tell you, BYU has some dogs. They sent two players, linebacker Jack Kelly and wide receiver Chase Roberts. We are going to do a little Combine recap. We're going to get into top 5 landing spots for both players. Where would they fit in? Which teams have a need for them? My name is Garrison Williams. This is the Beyond the Why podcast. Welcome back, everybody. We have a good one today. I don't know if any of you had a chance to watch Combine highlights at all. I know I personally don't watch a lot of the Combine. I see a lot of the highlights on social media, and I'll see some of the interviews and stuff like that, especially with the teams and the players that I follow. But I was really, really impressed going back and watching film on these two guys, linebacker Jack Kelly, wide receiver Chase Roberts. Both are household names for BYU fans, which I would assume most of this podcast following they are BYU fans. And it's really, really exciting to think about where these players could be going. We're going to break down their performances. Starting off with linebacker Jack Kelly, this starts off on a high note. And I guess before we get deep into Combine performance, I want to say the NFL Combine is a way, at least in my mind, for NFL general managers, head coaches, all the scouting personnel. It's a way for them to really split hairs on these players because, number one, it's hard to determine whether or not a player will actually be successful at the next level. I mean, I think we can all think of examples of players who were fantastic in college and who are either currently in the NFL or who have made it to the NFL and just didn't pan out very well. I mean, there are big names, there are small names. I think all of us can think of examples, even if you're not a huge BYU fan, of players from other teams who just did not translate their skill set into something that worked for the NFL and the professional level. So the Combine, in my opinion, is a way for NFL general managers to really split hairs and to see, are these guys football players? Are they willing and ready to come out, to work hard, to contribute to a team? There are a total of, I think it's 257 total draft picks for this year's 2026 NFL draft coming up. And each one of those picks held by a team is incredibly valuable. And depending on how many picks a team has, they could be investing real stock in players when they select them in the draft. So making it to the NFL Combine is a big deal, getting an invite to the NFL Combine, because it shows this player that NFL teams are interested in them and that they have a real opportunity to showcase some of their skill set. Now, my reason in saying that is because I don't want anybody listening to this to think, oh wow, Combine performance is really gonna matter. What really matters is how these players perform when they get to their teams. They could be undrafted free agents. And speaking of which, one of our favorite undrafted free agents this past week, Chris Brooks with the Packers, just signed a 2-year deal. So really, it just depends on the impact that this player will have on the team. It depends on a lot of things that even the player can't control, but at the end of the day, it's how they go out, it's how they ball. And I'm really, really excited to see how these two players go out and ball, regardless of how their Combine scores looked. But okay, getting back into it, Jack Kelly, linebacker for BYU. Again, a household name, especially if you're a defensive fan. Jack Kelly came into BYU during the Jay Hill era. He transferred out of Weber State. He played at BYU for 2 seasons, for 2024 and 2025 seasons. He is an incredible player. His strengths really, and this reflects in his Combine statistics, his strengths really are his speed and making tackles in open space. He gets to whatever player has the ball. He makes one-on-one tackles. He does a fantastic job of pressuring the quarterback. He plays a little bit of spy. He is a fantastic linebacker and most likely will be looking to fill somewhat of an outside linebacker role. I would be shocked to see him play more middle linebacker, but I think he's versatile enough to play both. But I think to play to his strengths, a team would do well to use him at outside linebacker. This guy's also smart. I mean, he was the leader of one of the leaders of BYU's dominant defense over the past 2 seasons, and that's going to showcase in the NFL. He can produce, he can make plays, he closes gaps, and he is ready to develop those skill sets, in my opinion, at the NFL level. I'm going to read you off his combine statistics. Take these for what they're worth. He ran a 4.57 40-yard dash. He had a 37-inch vertical jump. He had a 10-foot 5-inch broad jump. He had a 7.12 second 3-cone drill. And he tied with Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, boo, who we all know if you're a BYU fan, with a 4.19 20-yard shuttle. So for those who don't really know the combine, what this means is Jack Kelly did a great job at the NFL combine, He did a fantastic job showcasing his skill set. He did a fantastic job at showing his skills and showing NFL general managers his strengths. Like I said, this does well for teams that need an outside linebacker. And as we get into this next section where I'm going to break down the top 5 teams that I think he would do well at, where he would be successful, his top 5 landing spots, I took a look at teams that needed outside linebackers, not just teams who needed necessarily defense all around or middle linebackers or even edge rushers, because a lot of teams that I looked at, they needed people who could go and get to the quarterback and pressure them, and they needed guys who can stop the run, which I think Jack Kelly can do. I know he can do that. I've seen him do that, but who I am more concerned about is going to make tackles in open space. He's going to pressure the quarterback from the outside. He's going to get in on that dog blitz, and he's going to make big plays from more of that outside linebacker standpoint. So keeping that in mind, I honestly think Jack Kelly had a fantastic draft, a fantastic combine day, and I think it solidifies his spot as a mid-round draft pick. I don't think he'll necessarily go day one. I do think we're looking at more of he might go day 2. I think we're looking at more of a day 3 go here, just in comparison to some of those other linebackers. I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, Jacob Rodriguez, he also had a great combine. Of course, everybody's going to be looking at Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. So it's going to be a tough draft as far as if he's wanting to go sooner. And of course, everybody wants to go sooner. But I think he will get an opportunity because, like I said, I think his stock went up after the combine. And BYU still has its pro day coming up at the end of March. So he could opt to participate in that. He could also opt to not participate in that. I don't think anything's official yet. But I think overall, Jack Kelly's prospects are looking good for the 2026 NFL draft. So I'm excited to see which team picks him up. Okay, top 5 landing spots. We're going to go 5 to 1. I looked at a bunch of different teams. I can even talk about some of the teams that didn't quite make this top 5 list and maybe why they didn't. But I'm going to start off at number 5 with a little bit of a surprising one. I was talking with my buddy about this. My buddy is a Denver Broncos fan. I actually think Jack Kelly would do really, really well with the Denver Broncos. This would be, I think, an interesting choice for the Denver Broncos to draft Jack Kelly, and here's why. The Denver Broncos need skill players. That's number 1 overall. I think Broncos fans agree with that. They need skill players. They're probably going to target a running back soon, and I think they would do well to target wide receivers. This draft class is a little bit different than some that we've seen in the past, but there's definitely really great talent that's going to be successful in the NFL at those skill positions. So I think they're going to target high talent skill players really early in the draft. And they're coming from a position of having a highly successful defense. I think in 2025, their defense was one of, if not the best in the league. I know people kind of throw the Texans out there in that same conversation. But I honestly think that Jack Kelly could be walking into a fantastic situation if Denver were to be interested in him, again, going kind of mid to late round draft picks. Alex Singleton is headed to free agency. Justin Sternad, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Sternad, is also headed to free agency. So a couple of linebackers who really contributed for Denver last season, they're headed to free agency. I would think they'd be looking at either getting those guys back or signing them to a different deal. But there's room for new talent in that linebacker room. There's space for it, but not necessarily their number one concern. I think that defense is going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be any concern headed into next season. And I would love to see Jack Kelly head to Denver to really compete for a Super Bowl, because I think Denver's going to be competitive in the whole NFL. And that may be the last team on this list that is actually going to compete for a Super Bowl, which I think you could look at as a pro or a con. I put them at number 5 just because I don't think there's necessarily a huge need to draft a linebacker like Jack Kelly. But I think it's reasonable, and I think as an NFL GM, I think you'd be looking at that if your team was in the position that the Denver Broncos are in. So number 5, I got the Denver Broncos. Number 4 is the Carolina Panthers. Now, I know what you're thinking. I actually think the Carolina Panthers showed spots of real promise this season. Granted, Jack would be going into a defensive situation which isn't exactly conducive to success overall. But again, I think Jack would go in and contribute to the defense really well. Off the top of your head, think to yourself, can you name me the big name linebacker in Carolina? Probably not. I'll tell you, it's Christian Rozeboom. I went back and watched Christian Rozeboom film in preparation for this podcast, but other than that, I don't really know his name. I probably heard it when I watched some of the games this last season, but he's headed to free agency. My whole point in saying this isn't necessarily to throw shade at Christian Rozeboom, because he's probably fantastic, but to illustrate the fact that there's a real need for linebackers in this Carolina Panthers defense. And Jack Kelly would be going into a situation in which he could really have an opportunity to succeed. The Carolina Panthers actually had the lowest number of quarterback pressures at 148 last season. And so Jack Kelly, with his ability to pressure the quarterback, to make tackles in open space on really athletic quarterbacks, and Carolina, they're going to play a lot of really athletic quarterbacks next season. They're really going to need a linebacker who can close the distance like Jack Kelly can. So I got the Carolina Panthers at number 4. I think they'd be a fantastic spot for Jack Kelly to go. Number 3, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Look, guys, Indianapolis had the 31st ranked pass rush defense in the NFL this last season. 31st ranked, which means there was only one team worse. In my mind, when you score that low, when you're ranked that low as a defense, you've got room for anybody to come in and make a difference. Now, this team, Carolina, probably some of the other teams that we're going to talk about, they're going to target edge rushers and defensive linemen a little bit earlier to solve this problem. Look, they need to plug holes up front. That's the key to preventing offenses from being successful in the NFL. But General Manager Chris Ballard said, we've got to get younger. We've got to get faster. Well, Chris Ballard, I got a guy for you. Jack Kelly, linebacker out of BYU. He's young. He's fast. He's got experience succeeding at the college level. I think you would be good to draft him after you get a few of those, high talent players on your defensive line a little bit earlier in the draft. So I think Jack Kelly's got some room to compete in the Indianapolis locker room. They might, just with the linebacker talent out there in the draft this season, they might target a linebacker earlier, but they'll probably prioritize their defensive line, as I already said, just because that's going to be your first step in getting a great pass rush defense, is just getting dogs up front. So, but you want a dog up in the middle? Jack Kelly is your guy. Okay, number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, this is another defense that just needs some work all around. I mean, other than the Broncos, I think the Panthers and the Colts, they just need work all around. Tampa Bay is no exception. Like Indianapolis, they're probably going to prioritize defensive linemen. They also didn't have a very successful pass rush. They could use a young guy in open space in a coverage style linebacker like Jack Kelly. They were tortured at the linebacker position last season. Tortured. If you watch any Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, that linebacker position really, really struggled to make plays. And that's not to say that I don't like Levante David. Of course, he's had his seasons of being really dominant, but his situation is kind of up in the air. And so regardless of what happens with him, they need to upgrade their linebacker room with some young talent. And I think Jack Kelly fits the bill perfectly. I think he would have a real opportunity to succeed, to grow, and to show out his skills. And Tampa Bay has a history of having a pretty decent defense. So I'm not worried about Jack Kelly going to a team like Tampa Bay, whereas I would worry about him going to Carolina and probably a little bit Indianapolis, just with the state of the franchise where it's at. But Tampa Bay, I wouldn't be worried about him. I would be excited to see the opportunity. And like I said, regardless of what happens with Levante David, they need upgrades. So Jack Kelly fits the bill. Okay, my number one landing spot for Jack Kelly next season, drum roll please, the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about a team that needs players at essentially every spot on the defense. They had objectively the worst defense in the NFL last season. I would love to hear somebody tell me I'm wrong. Go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. I want to hear it because the Cowboys suck. And that's not Cowboys bias. That's just objective fact. They're probably going to target big talent up front. I think that makes the most sense. I think they should look for talent in free agency. But I think as far as the linebacker position goes, they would leave some room for a mid-round linebacker like Jack Kelly. They're going to target guys up front early. They're going to target guys in the secondary early. Mid-round is going to be your time for linebackers just based on the nature of the position. And Jack Kelly would do fantastic at this team just because of the fact that they need guys all around. I want to see Kelly with a big brand like the Cowboys, probably the biggest brand in the NFL. The lights aren't too bright for him. I mean, going from Weber State to BYU is a big deal. Going to BYU in 2024 is a huge deal because the lights got bright for BYU quickly. And Jack Kelly stepped up every single time. I think if there's a criticism about BYU and stepping into the limelight, it wasn't their defense. Their defense held up fantastic. And I'm obviously going to praise their offense as well. But Jack Kelly contributed to a really dominant defense. And going to Dallas, the lights wouldn't be too bright at all. Not at all. And so I would love to see him head that way. I would love to see him with a big brand team like that because he steps up in those huge moments. So there's my top 5 landing spots for Jack Kelly. Jack is going to be a super successful player in the NFL given the right opportunities. And I'm really curious to see where else he could go. The other teams I considered were the Jets and the Falcons. I didn't really think the situations were quite as good or the need was quite there for a linebacker like Jack Kelly. But like I said, I think he'd succeed wherever he went. If he went to a team who maybe doesn't even necessarily need a linebacker, but maybe he's just interesting to a team, I think he would have an opportunity to learn behind somebody, and it would be a great opportunity for him. Even with teams like Tampa Bay, or if they re-signed Levante David, oh, that would be fantastic for him to learn behind a guy like that, a 14-year player going into his 15th season. Oh, that'd be fantastic. So Jack's got a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see which team gets that opportunity to sign him. So, okay, moving on to another household BYU name, Mr. Chase Roberts, wide receiver. Man, I have loved watching Chase in college. This guy is BYU through and through, even to the point he served a 2-year mission, which is fantastic. That's got BYU written all over it. His strengths are, this dude is tall, he will get open, he produces on the field, and he is physical. He catches 50-50 balls, doesn't leave it up to chance. It worked really, really well having Bear Bachmeier this season at the helm because I love Bear Bachmeier, and I think he's got a high ceiling, and he's going to be fantastic this next season. But, hey, true freshman quarterback, threw up a lot of 50-50 balls, especially in Chase's direction, and on a lot of those, Chase really made a play. On the ones that he could, I would say he made the play. So Chase has been super fun to watch. I think he's going to have, if he gets the right opportunity in the NFL, he's going to have that star quality. I will say Chase's weakness, and we're going to talk about this with his combine recap that we're going to do here in a second. His weakness overall is just going to be his speed. He's not known for being the fastest guy, a guy who's going to burn you on the outside, a guy who you're going to put into motion pre-snap, but he still, in my mind, produces as a wide receiver. His production level is high, and so I think he overcomes that. Same with kind of overall athleticism. I think he is a dog. He is an athlete. He's got the stature. He's ready to go. But there are also guys in the NFL, and I think to really succeed in the NFL, that you need to be a big guy who's fast. So I think Chase has a lot of time to improve upon that speed and athleticism. But for now, it's going to go into my weaknesses category, and let's talk more about the combine to kind of clarify that thought. So 40-yard dash, he posted the slowest time amongst the wide receivers who ran the 40-yard dash at a 4.64. Now, let me clarify, 4.64 is cooking. That's crazy. I can't run a 4.64. I'd be curious if you could run a 4.64. That is cooking. However, again, these are top-level professional athletes, 0.1% of athletes out there. He's got to be a little bit faster if he's going to compete at that wide receiver position and be more competitive just across the league in general for that. And I think being last kind of puts a little bit of a red flag on his name. Although, like I said, I think if it makes sense to me that NFL general managers would focus more on the tape than they would actual statistics at the combine. It would make sense, and I would assume that's what they do. I don't know it for sure. I haven't necessarily spoken with any NFL general managers, but that to me makes the most sense, and his film is fantastic. If you go back and watch Chase Roberts highlights at BYU, you can find hours of it. I mean, he makes plays in big moments, and he would be a real asset to any NFL team who needed him. Sorry, got a little sidetracked there. He had a vertical jump of 37 inches. I would have thought that would be a little bit more, but I'm okay with that. And then a great broad jump with 10 feet 6 inches. That just kind of showcases explosiveness and athletic ability there. Just being a great football player, being that ex-receiver who's going to go and be physical and strong and powerful right off the line of scrimmage. I'm hoping he participates in BYU's Pro Day coming up at the end of March. He can showcase the fact that he can produce, that he can compete with other wide receivers in the NFL. And to be fair, as we go into this top 5 landing spots section, I want to clarify, there are other wide receivers like Chase in the NFL. And there are other wide receivers who consistently make plays and have high production levels in the NFL, despite also not being necessarily the fastest guys. So I'm not necessarily worried about Chase. The only thing that I worry about is that perception that I think he's given NFL general managers right now. So I hope he gets the right opportunity, because I think he'd really make the most of it, and I think he'd be an asset to a team. Okay, starting off. Man, there were a lot of teams that need wide receivers. I think wide receivers are going to be drafted a lot. Based off of that, I do think Chase Roberts will get drafted. It wouldn't surprise me at all for him to be a mid to late round draft pick, probably closer to the late. So there were a lot of teams that I crossed off my list. It was hard to narrow it down to 5, but these were the 5 that I liked the most. We're going to talk about it. Number 5, the New York Giants. Guys, don't you see him right alongside Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo? I mean, he just fits in. And that's not to say that Jackson Dart, another member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, another Utah guy, a Corner Canyon guy. I mean, Chase fits right in with that dynamic. And Cam Skattebo, also a Big 12 player. Not my favorite guy in college, but he's going to be fun to watch in the NFL. You got a brand new head coach in New York. I guess the coach isn't brand new, but he's brand new to New York. John Harbaugh. I think it's going to be a great time for New York to kind of restructure. Obviously, they're going to restructure just kind of everything, but especially their offense. Malik Neighbors is going to come off that injury. And I think Malik Neighbors has that speed. So I think Chase Roberts would do really, really well and complement Malik Neighbors really, really well, because they already have their big talent. And Chase Roberts could really have an opportunity to contribute on the other side there. They're similar, but it's potentially a good opportunity for Chase Roberts to come in and really learn and develop his skills. So Number 5 is the New York Giants. Number 4, staying in New York, the New York Jets. I didn't even realize I did that. Look, the biggest appeal to this in my mind is the fact that they got Garrett Wilson, who played college at Ohio State. Garrett Wilson is the speed, and Ohio State receivers are fantastic. Chase Roberts would match really, really well with Garrett Wilson, probably in my mind better than Malik Neighbors. Now, that's not to say he wouldn't do really well alongside Malik Neighbors. I'm just saying Garrett Wilson is known for being fast, shifty, go deep, put him in motion, everything like that. And Chase Roberts can hold it down more on the outside like that. I think he would complement fantastic. The biggest downside for the New York Jets is the quarterback situation. It's obviously not the same, and there's a lot that's up in the air for the Jets in their quarterback room this season, or this offseason. Justin Fields definitely wasn't what they wanted. I would think that New York, in fact, I'm going to say I assume and bet that the New York Jets are going to target a quarterback early. They have 4 picks over the first 2 rounds. I would think they would go after Ty Simpson, but I don't hate the idea of going after Taylon Green out of Arkansas, because I think he's a similar player to who the Jets have used at quarterback in the past. I know the Fields wasn't super successful, but I would compare the two a little bit, because Taylon Green was super fast. But I think Ty Simpson's the right choice. I think he'll land there. And I think Chase would go in kind of having an uphill battle with that quarterback situation, but I think he would naturally fit into that wide receiver role, and I think it would solidify that wide receiver room with a late wide receiver pickup in Chase Roberts. So New York Jets, I don't hate that. Either New York team, head out there, Chase. You'd do fantastic. Okay, number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this with the small asterisk, not so small asterisk, of Aaron Rodgers' future being somewhat up in the air. I think we're all just kind of waiting for him to re-sign. I mean, he's been really positive about Mike McCarthy and obviously has worked with him in the past. So if I were a betting man, I would say Aaron Rodgers is coming back to Pittsburgh, so we're going to kind of treat it like that. And look, I know they've got DK Metcalf. This is what I'm talking about. He's like a faster Chase Roberts. Let's just call it what it is. He's big. He catches those 50-50 balls. He's the big talent, and he is fast. However, he's not Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. He didn't produce as much with Aaron Rodgers as I think we thought he would. The opportunity for Chase Roberts to really excel in Pittsburgh is absolutely there, because Aaron Rodgers' number 1 target, Kenneth Gainwell, actually is headed into free agency. So is Calvin Austin III. So is Scotty Miller. So is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So Chase Roberts could really come into a team with a lot of potential. And again, another situation with Mike McCarthy coming in as the first-year head coach in Pittsburgh. And so we're gonna love to see what Pittsburgh does. And Chase Roberts could really contribute to an awesome rebuild starting in Pittsburgh right now. Again, with the asterisks of Aaron Rodgers, of course, Pittsburgh drops in my list significantly if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back. But, hey, I mean, maybe they throw Malik Willis an offer. Maybe they throw Kyler Murray an offer. There are quarterbacks out there who I think really could do well in Pittsburgh and who would give Chase Roberts an opportunity. So I don't worry about it too much. Okay, number 2. This may be a surprising one for people, but I'm going to stand by this and my number 1 choice. A lot of people, I think, would say that these two teams should be flip-flopped, but I'm standing by it. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. The wide receiver position is probably San Francisco's number 1 need right now. And I want you to think back to San Francisco's receiving room. Who was the face of that receiving room for the longest time? That one in San Francisco, who we all know and love, Deebo Samuel. Chase Roberts, if you look at the tape, very similar to Deebo Samuel. I mean, not necessarily the fastest guys, but talented, high production, physical athletes. I wish Deebo had stayed a little bit healthier throughout his time at San Francisco, but Chase can really go in there and fit well into a scheme in which he would play somewhat of a Deebo Samuel role given the opportunity. Now, of course, all of this is contingent upon Chase's competitiveness and his production throughout this offseason, but given the right opportunity, I think he would really go in there and play a Deebo Samuel-esque role. They're two very similar players. Now, The downside to this and why San Francisco fell to my number 2 spot for Chase Roberts here is they're probably looking for more speed. We had the whole crazy dynamic. We all saw that out in San Francisco this year with Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk was their speed guy. He was. And so they're probably going to be looking for some speed a little bit sooner, but that wide receiver room has a lot of room to grow, and so Chase Roberts would fit really well there, and I like San Francisco as a franchise, so I think there would be a lot of room for success as well. He wouldn't just be stuck there. I think the ceiling would be higher. So there's also Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne, and Sky Moore entering free agency. So like I said, that there's a big need for wide receivers in San Francisco right now. Okay, number 1 choice, my number 1 landing spot for Chase Roberts, where I would love to see him go, where I think he would be highly successful. The Washington Commanders. Again, probably kind of a surprising choice. They weren't as successful last season. I think anybody wanted them to be, especially Washington fans. However, they also had Deebo Samuel, and he's entering free agency. So I think Chase Roberts would really have an opportunity to come in there and match that description and fit that role. He would fit so naturally alongside Terry McLaurin, who I really, really like as an athlete. Terry McLaurin's more of the speed. He's going to be quick. He's going to be put in motion. Chase Roberts would fit so well. He's that bigger player. He's going to get behind the defense. He's going to be physical. He's going to contest those 50-50 balls. And look, at the end of the day, Washington, the reason why they're my number 1 choice is they had a lot of the things that these other teams didn't have. They've got a good quarterback situation. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. If he can stay healthy, I think they've got a fantastic situation going for him. I think Washington's stock overall is going up, and their wide receiver room is super thin. So go Chase. I would love to see him head out to Washington, compete with the Commanders. And like I said, with his combine not being great, we'll see where he lands, but I think his future is bright in the NFL, and I think given the right opportunity, he can really compete. And I think he's going to set a precedence for BYU, putting out a lot of fantastic NFL-ready wide receivers. So best of luck to Jack Kelly and Chase Roberts over the course of the next few weeks. Really excited to see where they end up in the draft. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please go ahead, go find our socials, subscribe to the podcast. It really, really helps if you share it to people you think might be interested. And we'll see you guys next week.